Hi, my name's Laura and I'm the owner of Our Animal World, which is a mobile educational zoo. An animal educator is someone who takes animals into places like schools, care homes, disabled residencies, hospitals, does events, children's parties, places like that. And they take the animals in with the idea of education. So, for example, we bring Heidi, one of our African pygmy hedgehogs. She'll come out with us and we actually speak a little bit about her and her kind from Africa and the differences between her and our hedgehogs that we get over here. But then that branches into, I then go into how we can help the hedgehogs over here, about some people still believe that hedgehogs can drink milk, but they're actually lactose intolerant. So teaching them things like that can actually benefit our wildlife over here as well. We also take in animals such as snakes, which have a bad reputation due to different films and things like that, and actually help people realise that they're not as bad as you think at all. And the amount of people, if I had £1 for every time someone said, "Oh, the snake's not slimy." No, they're not. They're not slimy at all. But it's just getting people to realise that animals aren't this perceived image that they thought. We also have a wide range of insects that people think, "Oh no, not insects." But actually, when they start to meet them in person, they're like, "Oh, actually, they're pretty cool." We also take in animals such as rabbits, guinea pigs, hamsters, and try and help encourage people to give them better lives and teaching them how. A lot of people don't give their animals the best life through complete ignorance. They don't know what they're doing is wrong, and we try to teach them that there is another way of keeping them. We don't lock them in hutches anymore at the bottom of our gardens. We want to make sure they've got a big space, that they need lots of space to run around. A lot of people are shocked when I tell them about where the hutch actually originates from. In the Victorian times, it was used to store live rabbits temporarily for meat, and a lot of people that shocks them, and that's why hutches were built so small. And for some reason, we just kept those as accommodation, but it's not good enough for our animals. It's not a healthy life. There's a lot of things such as the argument about muesli versus nuggets, and why a lot of vets and experts recommend nuggets over muesli, and teaching people about this sort of thing. So we're also trying to help reduce, and ideally, one day would be great if we can actually eliminate neglect, and actually teaching people and educating people that these aren't children's pets. Like, they might look cute and fluffy, but you can't just cuddle them all the time and everything else. They don't like it. They're prey animals. I've actually talked to many people that have come up to me and gone, "Oh, I want to buy my child a pet. I was thinking about a rabbit. What do you think?" So I explained to them, that's fine for an older child, but the child has to be aware. You sit on the floor, let them come to you, things like that. All about the healthcare, about the vaccinations, about the neutering. And suddenly they're, "Oh, well, we didn't know about any of that." So it's educating people about the husbandry of pets that they could be getting, or about the husbandry of pets that they already own as well. I never originally planned to work with animals. My background, I had worked with animals previously. I was a horse riding instructor for a while and was a groom, and worked on a yard. I then decided to become a primary school teacher, which is where I stayed for around 6 years. Now, when I was a teacher, I used to take my animals into school to teach the children in my class, when I was teaching them about animals, to get a kind of a closer up experience and kind of meet the animals that we were learning about. Now, it became so popular, I ended up doing it for other year groups, asked by the headmistress. Then someone one day said, "You love it so much, why don't you do this as a job?" Now, previously, an animal educator was something I hadn't even heard of, let alone was an idea in my head. So that moment on was my decision. That's what I wanted to do, and that was my dream. So 6 years later, I finally started up my own company. So once I decided that this was what I wanted to do, I started doing online courses, evening courses. I did animal care management level 1, 2, 3 and 4. Then continued my education from there. I had a lot of personal research. Every animal I'd always owned, I'd always done a lot of research before owning. And it's true for every animal that I've got here. I've always done my research, spoken to experts, spoken to people on Facebook groups, and just basically made sure I knew what I was doing before I got the animal. I did face a lot of challenges when I first started my road to starting up my business. There isn't a lot of information out there about starting up Education Mobile Zoo, shockingly. I did have to find out if I needed planning permission, and even the council were like, we don't know where to put you on this one. But trial and error and determination, and I managed to finally speak to the right people. Luckily, I knew someone that already had the license that I needed. Because to do this as an actual job, as in start up a company like I have, you need a lot, and I mean a lot of paperwork. So paperwork such as, first of all, I needed the license. So all my animals, my enclosures, my food regimes, my cleaning regimes, everything has been completely checked by an exotics vet, as well as by the council. 2 members of the council and an exotics vet came round and did my inspection, which luckily I passed, which was wonderful. A lot of preparation of designing things had to go into, like, for example, we've got a van which isn't around on any other company like mine. So there was a lot of designing. I actually did an undergrad degree in technical theatre, which gave me designing elements, which I was actually able to use when I was designing everything from all the buildings we have here, as well as the van, like I said, were all completely designed by me. All the drawings, the schematics, everything was drawn up by myself. All the vivs, things like that, were all custom built to my specification. I wanted to make sure everything was done perfectly. So to get your license, like I did, you have to write up a lot of procedures. Everything that seems such a simple task has an entire procedure behind it. So it can be entering enclosures. I had to write an entire procedure just on how to enter each enclosure, how that you feed first in the morning, you check them all. That had another procedure. About all the zoonotic diseases, they have their own procedures. Amphibians, they have a whole section on their own because of the diseases and risks that they carry. You have to be aware of all the feeding regimes for all the different animals, enrichment, because it's so important for animals to have their enrichment. It can include things like handling, training of animals. That all counts. That's all has to be written down into a procedure. You need a procedure just to travel out. My van has its own entire folder which has procedures for if it breaks down, when you go out, how long you can go out for, how long the animals can be out and be held, and how often they go out. You have to make sure that you switch it around enough so that they're not going out every single day for too long. All these sort of things that when I first started is something that I didn't consider. It is a lot of hard work, but I don't regret it at all. English skills are incredibly important. As I have previously mentioned, I had to write a lot of procedures to get this company started. Of course, the English comes into that. There's also a lot of form filling out, everything from booking forms and things that come through, obviously answering emails. As a business, it doesn't look very good if you've got a lot of spellings or grammatical errors in there. So it's that perceived look that you have to the public. Also, as volunteers, you have to fill in forms if an animal is sick or injured. If there's a first aid incident, you have to be able to fill that in. So obviously clear handwriting that you can see, as well as general kind of English skills. Math skills, again, are incredibly important. There's a lot of budgeting that goes on in this business. For example, I have to know money coming out, money going in. I do all my own invoices, receipts and things like that. So obviously I have to be tallying that up. That all then has to be registered in a folder, which then goes to an accountant later on in the year, which all has to be in numerical order. Of course, you have to know who's paid, who hasn't. Sometimes some people will pay their deposit, so you have to knock that off and write up how much they still owe. Then you've got some people pay in installments, so again you're taking off a certain amount each time. The math skills generally, also, knowledge of when we're doing feeding. It can be, I might ask you to write, okay, can you put 20 mils of whatever liquid or substance I'm asking you to give the animal into there for me. So obviously you've got the maths side of that. Again, I actually inject my goats and things like that myself here. So again, maths is very important. You have to be able to read syringes and things like that quite easily, as well as being able to read, again, going back to the English, you have to be able to read medication, following it very, very clearly. If you don't, of course, it can have a negative impact on the animals. So as an animal educator, we are effectively actors, in the sense that although you are educating, you are telling people, you have to put on a performance. So you are giving out important information or interesting facts that you want the audience to listen to. Now, I've been on certain jobs where I've got there and in my head I thought, right, I'm going to do this, this and this. And I get there and I go, this group their attention span's really small, like especially for younger children. So I've had to then simplify it, make it quicker, and kind of adapt there on the spot. On the flip side of that, I've been to a care home, and I thought that maybe they wouldn't be so interested in the fact side, more kind of the actual interaction part, only to get there to realise that they absolutely loved the facts. So therefore I had to adapt again on the spot and include a lot more. I've also done a care home for dementia patients. Again, it was a bit more of a middle of the road because some of them was aware a lot more than others. So therefore I wanted to make sure they were all enjoying themselves. So therefore I had to make sure there was a lot of facts and information for those that were aware of more of my presence. And then for the others, I left it a more tactile side because some of them weren't able to interact with what I was saying. Following on from what you need to be aware of around your audience is also the mobility issues. For example, I've done a disabled care home or disabled residencies where the people there have a tendency to kind of grab, not realising that they could do harm to the animals. So my staff have to have training to ensure that they know what to do in that situation, because obviously you can't leave the animal in that situation. But to kind of guide their hand in a gentle, non-aggressive, but secure manner. And that's part of the training that we have to do here. So employers' expectations. As an employer myself, I look for people that are professionally mannered. Now, I say that, and what exactly do I mean? So it's everything from choice of language, so of course not using bad language, especially out in public, not using any sort of language that someone could find offensive, being kind to each other, helping each other, actually doing the job as asked, making sure, I mean, at the end of the day, these animals depend on us as humans to look after them. It's an incredibly important job. and so it should be treated as such. When you're out and about, not sitting there on your phone, or even at home when you're not sitting on your phone. Of course, if it's your lunch break, you can do what you want. But when you're actually working, you're there to work, whether you're an employee, whether you're a volunteer, or whether you're a work experience student. So a general day in the life of me includes everything from feeding the animals, checking on them, making sure that nothing has happened overnight, making sure they've got food, they've got water, making sure that they're cleaned out, making sure that, you know, everything's in place. And if I've got any volunteers in or any work experience, that they know what they're doing, that they're all set up and that they can start their day. I then have to go into the office and I make phone calls, everything from bookings. I have to book calendars in, I have to be invoicing, I have to be chasing up deposits, making sure that I've got all the dates correct, that they know where I'm going, making sure that we've got enough space. If they want our van experience, they need to make sure they can that we can access it with the van. And if they don't, that they've got somewhere, it's got to be within a close proximity that we can get to the venue through, of course, the animals still travel in our van, so we have to make sure things like that. I then have to be calling around schools and advertising online, on Facebook, on Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, you name it, we're on most social media pretty much. So all that kind of has to be done as well. And then, of course, making sure all vets, invoices, everything else has been paid, everything's up to date to make sure that we don't owe anything as a company. And making sure that if any stocks are low or anything, whether it be live food or fruit and veg for the animals, making sure that's all ordered in and make sure that we have it in time, to make sure that it's there for myself and the volunteers and work experience pupils and everything to use. Animal wise, we have rabbits, guinea pigs, African pygmy hedgehogs, hamsters, chickens, we have goats, we have a whole variety of birds, including kakarikis, cockatiels and budgies. In our reptile room, we've got an Aki monitor, we've got 2 bearded dragons, 2 royal pythons, 2 corn snakes, a Berber skink, we've got a Rankins dragon, we've got 2 crested geckos, 2 leopard geckos, we've got a Pac-Man frog, a tank of poison dart frogs, we've got some green tree frogs, and then in the vertebrate room we've got a giant whip scorpion, we've got a whole load of different stick insects, we've got praying mantises, cockroaches, millipedes, giant snails. Yes, so we have a lot of animals that we have to tend to, and a lot of animals that we need to make sure we've got food, water, bedding, whether that, you know, whatever substrate's needed, make sure that everything is there for when people need it. My most favourite aspects of this job is, well, one, of course, being around the animals, but my absolute love of what I do is when we go out. When I'm educating people about the animals, that's what I love the most. That's what makes this job worth every second. Seeing the awe and the amazement in people's eyes when they're learning about the animals or they get to meet them up close. You know, children, adults, you name it, it doesn't make a difference. Just seeing people's interaction is just incredible. One of my least favourite parts of this job is when we've been out all weekend. So for example, at a country show, it can be really long hours. We did do one which was actually an hour and a half drive away. We had to be there by 8 o'clock in the morning. So it's a very early start for both Saturday and Sunday. By the time we finished at 5 o'clock in the afternoon is when the show closed, and then on the Sunday afternoon at 5 o'clock is when we had to pack down. And that, by that point, we were all shattered, and that was the hardest part. Was just, we just wanted to be able to click our fingers like Mary Poppins and it all just magically go back in the fan. That's the one thing we were not looking forward to, but it was worth it. It was really good fun. The actual weekend was great. So I hope that this has been of some use to you guys, and yeah, good luck with the future.